ahead, slow it down and make it no time. I gotta keep it rolling. Those windshield wipers snapping out the tempo, playing perfect rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rideshare Rodeo podcast, episode number 339, weekly discussion of all things gig economy. And this week, I am joined by Levi Spires. For those of you not familiar with Levi, you will be here shortly. Levi, thanks for joining the podcast. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
No, of course. You know, and then I saw you were on a gig economy podcast, and actually I think I reached out a while ago, but things go. You get lost in all the platforms and all the different. I DM'd you on what? On Twitter. Oh, I think you meant Instagram. Oh, and then email, and sometimes like that even happens on top of just falling behind. So it's
my
like,
gosh.
where'd you reach out to me? And they're like, my worst is if somebody says, I hit you up on Facebook Messenger, because I don't use Messenger. I don't even have it on my phone. And I make posts, and I have some very smart ass friends, but
yeah,
I make posts like, do not send me Messenger messages. I do not check them. No. And then everybody's like, I'll make sure to message you right now.
Oh my gosh. What? My mom sends me a lot of stuff through Instagram still. And, I have to watch it because she will check in with me, through text messaging later. So yeah, I get lost. The whole idea of everything that I'm doing is to create a community. And so I can't just ignore. So I get lost. I get lost in all the DMs.
But with that, I wonder too, because I mean, like Kim, Side Money, and we've really plugged it at Instagram. We can't find the value in Instagram for our niche anyway. Maybe there is for a lot of people, but we haven't seen anything. Like that's shown growth. Like TikTok, I used to not like it at all, and I still try and get off it. But there is a value to having a TikTok. There's a value to having a Twitter. I mean, it just depends on your niche. But I don't think every social helps you.
No, I don't. I use Instagram. I don't think I'm good looking enough for Instagram. I think it's like full of beautiful people, and I'm bald, so I don't fit in with Instagram.
Is that what Instagram is? I don't know. I don't even know what Instagram is. I thought it was just, pretty much for like it does do a decent job figuring out, like, I'm a big snowboarder, so it knows I like snowboarding, so it'll show me clips. But then like I like a lot of Gary Middleton's clips too, and he's like a foodie on Instagram. Now he's not talking about his apps like Maximo and DUH and stuff. He's showing pictures of the food he makes. I'm always liking it's another thing. Oh, he's a foodie. No, I'm not. I'm just liking my friend Gary's pictures.
No, yeah. It's Instagram and Facebook are definitely where I connect with friends and family. It's a little bit more personable there, as opposed to my ex Twitter feed is definitely, rideshare and golf and stuff like that, where LinkedIn's all business. I have a Facebook group, YouTube and TikTok, though, where I spend most of my time, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I always see, that's another place I always see you is TikTok. And I know all your videos are good, but your TikToks are great. Again, I only go to, I'm probably doing it wrong. I go into TikTok, I create, I leave. But I do see like the people that I follow, I'll see in my friends who have posted, and I'll hit that and I'll like kind of scroll through those at least. I just don't like getting lost in the TikTok algorithm, because I'm going to be honest here. I think it's one of the best algorithms at killing your brain ever, because they can keep you for 5 years without getting bored.
No, I'll scroll through it for a good 3 hours. Just watching like cats jump from like cucumbers and stuff like that. I love that stuff.
And then it knows Levi's in a mood tonight. He wants to see cats jumping.
That's it.
So it's like, keep showing it to him. And then maybe tomorrow you're like, wait, I want to see trucks not fitting underneath bridges. And then it's like, he wants to see trucks crashing into stuff. You don't even have to like things. It just knows.
Well, it's like the time you spend on the thing, right? So if you spend 3 seconds on it, then they know you like it, right? If you spend 5 seconds, they know you really like it. So you don't have to like anything. They just know if you stopped scrolling, then that's what they're going to feed you. And I I'm not too proud to admit that I love wasting time on TikTok and anything else. I don't read books. I'll just
Yeah.
doom scroll for sure.
Yeah. No books on tape either.
No, I'm teasing. I do read books. I
I mean,
do.
I'm sure there was a time I used to read more than I do now, I'll be honest, and now I'm like almost embarrassed because the stuff I do read is like legislation.
Oh God, no,
So
no.
if
I would.
somebody, because I'm dealing with some of this stuff and I'm trying to, get involved with some of this stuff. So I'm reading it at a very slow rate, but it's like, and then I'm like, why is this what I'm choosing to read?
Oh my gosh. I'll give you a quick backstory. Before I was a rideshare driver, Uber driver, and before I was in the creative world, I was actually a government accountant. I was in the Air Force. So I spent 12 years as an accountant, and I've read a lot of legislation and a lot of accounting law and stuff. So I just ignore it. If a bill, I'm never going to read that stuff. Yeah. I don't even read contracts. I don't read the Uber statement.
Yeah,
There's a lot of pride. People will be
yeah,
like,
the
hey, did you
TOS,
read
the
the
checkbox.
Oh, frick
Yeah.
no. I'm not gonna read that. If
Yeah,
they kick me off, they
I can
kick me
barely
off.
get my nubby finger to even check the box.
No, yeah, I'm never I'm never gonna read that. I need people like you to read all that stuff for me. Let me know.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, before we get into it, I know that you do rideshare, but I have you done or do you do other platforms at all? Or is it just rideshare?
Just I'd say 95% Uber X, 1% Uber Comfort, 1% Lyft, and probably 2%, and that doesn't add to 100%, but Uber Eats. Yeah, that's really it.
Okay, so you do have
Yeah.
the food platform, but you're not using it really.
Yeah, I've done maybe 300 Uber Eats out of my almost 9,000 trips with Uber, so
Okay.
it's not very much, yeah.
So it's really Uber too. It's not even Lyft.
Not even Lyft, yeah. I've done more Lyft this year, so I'm probably about 200 trips this year with Lyft over the last, let's say,
Okay.
6 months. And it's to me, it's like a fallback position. If Uber kicks me off the platform for whatever reason, I'm like, oh, I can jump right into Lyft. But it's just really hard to make money with Lyft in my market as compared to Uber.
Yeah, I don't know if you were when did you start doing this?
Literally, I want to say exactly 4 years ago. I started right before the pandemic hit, and then I took a
Okay.
break, when they locked us all down. And
Yep.
then as soon as they released us, that's kind of when I started doing it. So literally 4 years ago.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that I remember in 2015 when I onboarded here in Denver, Uber was I got onto both. Both paid amazing, and it was like this war, but they were totally different. I mean, this was pink mustache Lyft.
Oh yeah.
This was like, and even their approach was night and day. It was weird. And then I really started liking Lyft. I was on both, and I was doing 3 times as many lifts here in Denver for probably about a year and a half. And then out of nowhere, Lyft decided, let's just do everything Uber does. And they took away all their uniqueness. And some people might say, well, you were just benefiting more as a driver because they were still oversaturating that market to a degree. So you were getting paid a little. No, I mean, sure, those factors weigh in and how often does it surge, but the business used to be there for Lyft too. It's not anymore. It's pretty clear. Uber dominates, but I mean, when they did that, I was like, why? Why you're the only chance to not be Uber, in this
Yeah.
country without leaving a monopoly. And it's
I think don't you think like most people just really just sign on to both apps to see which one is the cheapest slash fastest? I don't think the
yeah,
passengers really care.
well, but yeah, but I think that people used to a lot more than they do because I know friends who I'll go out and meet them on a weekend or something. They live in Golden and they know they're going to be drinking, so they're taking a ride down. They used to be people that had both apps. Let's check the
Mhm.
price. Now they've just found they like one more than the other and deleted the other. So I do know a lot of people who don't even have both anymore. They just have one. And that doesn't mean they have Uber. They might have Lyft.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm actually kicked off the Uber app as a, drive or a passenger, so I have a good rating. I don't understand it. I've bought gift cards and loaded them onto my Uber account, and then every time I try to hire an Uber or order one, it says, "Please choose a different payment method." So it's like they literally have $50 on my account, and I can't order a $10 Uber. So I
Oh,
only
probably because it's a prepaid.
yeah, but I've have credit cards. I've myriad of ways to pay, and I've
Right,
used
right, right.
Apple Pay. It won't take any money from me, and so I can't order an Uber. So I use Lyft as a rider. So when I do, I'm a very good Lyft rider, but I don't use Uber as a. So it's really weird. I drive for
And
Uber and I
that's
ride with
really
Lyft.
strange. Clearly, you don't care enough to even call. So
No, I just don't care. I don't care. Well, yeah, I mean, the only time I really do ride share is like I'm kind of curious. I want to meet other drivers. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but I'm like, I could probably not catch a lift, but I'm like, oh, let me see who's in the market. Let me just get in the car. And I'm always like taken aback by how they do things. It's almost like I'm spying on them. And I want to go, do you know me? My name is Levi. I run Tip You in the app. They don't know who I am.
um, let me jump over to the chat here for a second, just because I had it closed up. I want to see who's saying hi and whatnot. Okay, let's see. Hey, what's up, Joe? What's up, Traveler? What's up, Head Killer? What's up, Robin? How are you? Hi, Ellen. And what's up? What's up, Toby? What's up, Digi Nomad? And CBL Daddy and Christopher Taylor. How you guys doing? Thanks for joining us. We're just going to be talking some rideshare and some I know that when you kind of alluded to it already. You said that you were an accountant. I caught that on Jason's stream, and I remember if I caught correctly, you were, as I think many accountants are, you were a six-figure earner,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
probably putting in more than what most people know to be full time. Most people I know think full time's 40 hours, and then no, dude, you.
Mm.
That's why I work independently, because it's. I mean, I've had salary jobs where I've worked 90 people, so I'm just saying, like, don't.
Yeah, you have to when you become a salaried employee, at you're making good money, let's say 150,000 a year or something like that. You're always working 24/7. If somebody sends you a text message or an email, and you don't respond fairly quickly, it's like you're just not responsive. So I feel like you're always on, and that's always a challenge.
So I wanted
So
to thank you, Robin, for this, and I wanted to see why do you think legislators never paid attention to the book, Uberland? So they turned Uberland into a show on Showtime. You can go watch it. It's called what's it called? It's been a while since I watched it. It was only 8 episodes. Super Pumped. Super Pumped.
hey,
Go
super pumped.
watch
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
go watch that. It's actually really well done. I mean, it walks you through it real quickly too, all the timeline of pretty much all the controversies they've had. So if you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. And thank you again for the super chat. But okay, so when you left there, this is still pre-pandemic,
Correct.
kind of, I guess, and
Yeah.
you decided to go to rideshare. I mean, were you instantly like, okay, I'm leaving here, but I do need work. It needs to pay X amount, so I'm going to go try rideshare. What was the story there?
Yeah, so I'll give you the kind of the quick version of it. I was on a business trip in January, February, right before the pandemic hit in Vegas, and I was complaining about money to my Uber driver, and and he's like, "You should be an Uber driver," and I was like, "Dude, I'm a vice president. Come on, man." I'm like, I was being really arrogant and stupid. He's like, "No, trust me, you should do rideshare." So on the flight back, I just did all the paperwork on my phone, and when I landed back in Syracuse, where I live here, that Friday, I decided to kind of test it out, see what rideshare was all about. And of course, that was crazy because I didn't have a phone mount and I was in the left lane. Right when they gave me that first trip, I was doing like 65, and it's like
Yeah.
exit in 100 feet, and I'm like, and I missed it, but I liked it. I did it for about an hour or 2 hours, and I made a lot of money. I made 50, $60 or something like that, and I was like, this is really fun. And I'm an accountant, right? And my background's in economics. So I just quickly realized I have a 30-minute commute both to and from my work. And what I figured out was if I just turned the app on and caught one or two rides into work and or caught one or two rides home, my commute became a tax deduction. Pandemic hits, and I can't everybody had like rethinking of their priorities in their life. And I thought I wanted to write a book, and I did. And so I wrote a book. Still not published, but I wrote one. And I just told my business partner that I quit. So my last official day on the job was like Thanksgiving, something like that. And yeah, I just quit. And basically, the way I look at rideshare is I make enough. I know I can make enough to pay the bills. So I live a lifestyle where I can live off of like $1,000 to $1,200 a week. Sometimes I do that much rideshare. Sometimes I'll do like 2,000 a week. But for the most part, I'm averaging about 1,000 a week. But I have clients. And so people hire me. A lot of businesses hire me to produce content. And that's when I started to create Tip You in the app. So Tip You in the app, if you're not familiar with it, is a brand. It's a community of rideshare drivers and other gig workers. And I use that as kind of like both a way to create a community, but I also show my clients that's a proof of concept, right? So that I say, hey,
Mhm.
look, here's how I produce content. I've got 1 million views on this video or whatever, and you can do something similar. So it's like a full circle. So rideshare helps me produce content. I make money doing that. I use that content to make money, but I use that content to also generate sales leads. And where I generate most of my, income for my family is through producing content for clients.
So
There's a long way about it.
do you have a good amount of clients, personal clients? Because I'm pre-pandemic. I'll admit too that I did the same thing. I had some really good ones. I had a couple of Denver airports, the new ones, quite a distance from downtown. I
Oh
live
yeah.
downtown. There was a lot of pilots who were like, "Hey, can you just take me all the time?" Yep. Well, just let me know. And like, so they were really great clients because they always needed to get out there, and those were always good rides. Once you take Uber and Lyft out of the equation, I could charge obviously more than I was making, but these people were saving so much money. So then there was
Oh,
a tip too. I'd be like, yeah, if I was being paid 20 by Uber and I was like, okay, yeah, I can do airport rides for $30, they'd just give me 50.
yeah, I've done a couple of rides for friends like that. My actual clients that hire me though are to produce videos and
Oh,
to
okay.
produce
You're not
social
you're
media
not
content.
you're not landing because you can. You're an
I
independent
could.
contractor. You can do this. I'm trying to tell everybody,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
make sure that if you've been doing it long enough and you think that your market that's a doable thing, if you have enough good conversations with people, I can tell you this, enough people are pissed off about the Uber and Lyft pricing models that
Mm.
you might be very surprised you might land some clients.
Oh, for sure. I know I could. The challenge with clients for me isn't really the money side to it. It's the coordination side to it. I do work, I do ride share, let's say 15, 20 hours a week, maybe more. And then on top of it, I do 40 plus hours of work for my own clients that hire me. And then I got to produce stuff for Tip You in the app. And what happens with when I get private clients is like I have to find a way to kind of put that into my schedule, and I feel like I owe them something because I've given them my number. So I've got 3 or 4 friends that are clients, but they're really just friends.
Mhm.
I would do it for free. I would just give them a free ride, but they always like, well, here's $100. And so I think private rides are, if I was a full-time driver, that's what I would spend my time focusing on. In fact, I think I'm going to do some more research and find out more about it. I just personally can't coordinate it. What I love about Uber is when I'm ready to do it, I just turn it on and it does its own thing. And I just kind of just go with the flow, as opposed to the drivers that I know are trying to do more of a full-time gig.
Mhm.
The private rides are just a cash cow. I'll give you a good example. I picked up an airport run. It was about an hour trip, 60 miles, give or take. It was $80 for me. And she paid $200 for it. She paid right at $200 for it. And I know if I charged her 150, she'd be super happy. She did give me a $50 tip, but it's kind of like one of those things where um, this is the second time I've taken that lady too, by the way. And so I know that if I would have just gave her my phone number, she goes to the airport all the time, and it's a great way to do business. I totally recommend private rides.
I'll say this to anybody listening to us right now that it's hard to do it that first time. You're gonna find yourself going, you feel like you almost feel like you're stabbing Uber or Lyft in the back. And I know all of you are hearing this going, I don't care. I'll do that every day. I don't care. You do care when you do it your first time, though. It feels like
Sure.
something feels a little creepy, and it shouldn't. You are an independent contractor. You are allowed to do this. I mean, hell, you could just have a little QR code on the back of the headrest and say, hey, I also do private rides.
For sure. Yeah, I think there's that. I think it's a sale, right? And so Steve, you know this. People that do sales, you don't the first few times you ask for the sale, it's like you're embarrassed. But once you get in the habit of doing it, just ask for it. Here's an advice. If people want rideshare advice, I ask for a tip. I know it's like, oh, it's not kosher, you're not supposed to ask for a tip. I'm like, but that's why half my passengers tip me, because I ask.
Right. Which also brings attention to you're not making much, because that can go down that road too of, you might, and it's not like you feel like but you might find yourself saying like, do you understand? Or, if somebody's like, okay, hesitant, you're just going to play off it. Like, well, just understand, I only get 20% of what you're paying. And that opens up a whole new world to them. I mean,
exactly.
I got to tell you, when I first saw your tip you in the app, I was laughing because you can go predate all the way back 4 years on my podcast to the beginning episodes. And it was a trick that I was teaching rideshare drivers, because people used to say it all the time. They used to say, and I'm talking pre-pandemic, they'd be like, I tipped you through the app, or they'd be like, I could tip you through the app, right? And anytime I got so mad at it, because like maybe 1 out of 10 did. And I honestly believe more even intended to, but too many people just put their phone away and forget. So I started getting to a point where they're like, if I can just tip you in the app, right? I'd be like, yeah, but hey, can you show me how you do that so that I can show? I get people asking me all the time.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
And they'd have to be like, yeah, and they'd do it. And I know they could get out of the car and remove it, but who'd do that? I mean, that's really going.
Yeah, I put people into 3 buckets, Steve. And so bucket number 1 is people that are always going to tip you. You could be the crappiest driver in the world, and they're going to still tip you, right? That's kind of the world I live in. And then there's, on the other side, people that think there's some sort of moral stance against tipping. They're like, I don't know. It's just, the anti-tipping culture in America thing. And so those third of people over there, the ones in the middle are the ones that probably want to tip you. They just forget, because they've already paid for the transaction, right? They've ordered the Uber or the Lyft, and they get in the car and they're on social media, or they're talking to you or whatever. And then they get to their restaurant. They're not thinking about you. And if you don't remind them in the car to do that, they're going to just totally forget. And so there's a couple of ways that I do it. I have some signage in the car. I set up my own iPad with trivia about the local area. And every 4 or 5 slides, it says, hey, don't forget to leave me a review and or a tip. The second thing is I definitely ask for a review as we're getting close to the end of the ride. And if I've done them a favor, whether it's stopping for their request or allowing them to eat in the car, or if I loaded their luggage, I'll say, hey, don't forget to leave a review and a tip. I'd really appreciate it. And I know it's hard, to your point, what you were saying earlier, because you're feeling like, you're just embarrassed.
Now I'm not.
But now I'm
not. Yeah, no, that's why I'm telling people, do it once or twice. You won't be, trust me. All of a sudden it's like, you'll do it every time.
Yeah, I'll never see these people again. So what do I care what they think of me? As long as they give me a tip, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it's you just kind of hit it on the head. For me, is like, we had the discussion the other night, I think on the round table, about tipping, and how the Gen Zers are actually they were noticing that like 2/3 of Gen Zers go out to eat at a sit down restaurant and don't tip. So here's my thing on it. I probably fall in your camp. Food's a little more, it's easier way for me to make this comparison. I'm going to tip 20+% anywhere I go, even if it's the worst service I've ever seen in my life. What I won't do is go back to the restaurant.
That's right.
But with Uber and Lyft, that's different, because you get a bad rider, you've had 10 good drivers, you're going to go back to it. But maybe it does start to weigh on you. But there's nothing wrong with, I don't want to beg a tip. I don't want to try and like pry it out of your hands kind of thing. But at the same time, I do think people need to be reminded.
Sure.
I think they see how much they're paying. And I still, to this day, I know a lot more people are waking up, but I think a lot of passengers have no idea how high the take rate on the other side has got.
It's really bad, especially when that take rate, the conversations I've had the most with the clients about that are when they want to add a stop. They'll say something like, hey, I want to add a stop real quick. And I'm like, wait, don't do that, because I'm already getting paid $20 on this trip. If you add a stop, I've actually had my pay decreased, right? I've gone from 20 to 18. I'm like, don't add a stop. And then, because if you do that, I won't get most of that. And actually, one time I told one of the passengers, go ahead and add the stop and tell me how much you paid. And she said she paid $10 extra. And I think I made an extra $1, right? So the $9 went to Uber and whoever else. And so I made a whole TikTok out of that. I was like, just tell me what you made out of that, because I want to make a video. And she's like, yeah, sure, make a TikTok, that'd be great. And so I made a TikTok that she paid $10 extra, and I only made an extra $1, something like that. And she
So
tipped me. She tipped me.
I got to hit on this comment, Ellen. So I see Ellen saying, I would say it's easier for customers not to tip if they choose on delivery than as opposed to rideshare. I gotta go against that, Ellen. Food delivery is tip baiting. I mean, even the platforms are baiting you. So it's like everybody's baiting you on the food side. So I mean, yeah, they cannot tip, but I think people get that a little bit easier. I do believe. I mean, I guess you have to do rideshare first, but many people don't tip on rideshare. Even in my earliest days, most of my tips were like bar people going home and stuff, and that's cash community, so they'd tip me cash. And I can't tell you, I mean, like these days cash tips are pretty much, because nobody uses cash anymore.
Yeah.
So it's that adds a whole nother thing. So you have to remind them. And like you were saying, like some people take an Uber, put the phone away, and don't take another ride share for 4 days, and then still tip you when they get back in there because they see, oh, I never tipped the guy.
That's right. Those are my favorite tips. I love waking up to like $1 tip. I'm like, oh, I got $1 overnight. What did I do?
Yeah. I mean, at least it's just a little, yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of like belief in humanity again. Like, okay, guy wasn't a total tool. Like he at least recognized and said, I need to throw this guy a buck.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I don't want to sound like I don't need the money, but I mean, a tip is really, to me, it's almost more of like they appreciate what I do. And so like this weekend, I gave a ride to a dad and the daughter. The daughter was visiting the local college, and we were talking, and I said, oh, I have a friend down in Tampa. And he runs like this pirate thing, and they knew him, and they were friends with my friend. And I was like, oh, that's great. And so we had this great conversation, and it was like, this was a pretty well-off dad with his daughter. And I loaded the luggage. I'm like, oh, great. And then it took like an hour for the tip to come in, and the whole hour I'm just stewing. Like, we're friends, and you're not tipping.
Mhm.
And I loaded the luggage, and it was a reserved ride too, where I had to wait 15 minutes. It was a reserved ride, and I got there early, and they're like, oh, we're gonna take the whole 15 minutes. I'm like, you mother. I was so mad. You're gonna make me sit out here at this hotel for 15 minutes. And so it was like a $30 trip. It was a $30 trip for like all of, I don't know, 10 minutes. So I was gonna wait the whole 15 minutes, but I felt like, then they didn't tip me. And the whole time I'm just driving around taking other passengers going, that dude didn't tip me, and he knows me. But it did. It came through late.
But how well do you guys know each other now?
Oh, because he tipped me, we're good. But if he had never tipped me, the next time I'm in Tampa, I would look him up. I would find him for the $8 tip that he did.
You're gonna waste a half day of your vacation just to
go look for him. Yeah. So tipping to me, and I know it's about our compensation, but to me, it's almost just like a sign of respect for the drivers, probably like you and me, the people that really care, because we've been in other people's cars that are falling apart. They stink. They're not really putting any effort into it. And here I am getting my car cleaned once or even twice a day. I put every level of effort to give them the best possible service that I can. And just a $1 tip is that's more than enough. I'd be like, oh, that's great. They appreciate who I am as a person for doing this work. And when they don't tip, especially when I've done that favor, to me, it's like, if I ever see you again.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. And I think that to remove a tip, you should have to call and have an agent on the phone, and they should record why you're removing it.
For sure. That'd be, yeah.
Like, yeah, that's fine. We have to record this conversation. Let me record this and just keep it on file tied to that account. See how many times because we know for a fact how many times have people abused before you could be under 18, which is a whole topic I just get beyond mad at, because that used to be something I used to have to deal with all the time at the high schools. Was everybody was unaccompanied minor, and I wouldn't do it anyway. I wouldn't do it today. I wouldn't do it then. But the fact that they finally folded on that. But I mean, people were willing to try and get a free $5 ride, even if it meant you losing your job.
So
Fact.
angry.
Fact.
God.
I mean, people like might want to go out. You give them a super nice ride, and then on top of everything else, it's like it's the nice guy who gave them the ride, and they're like, dude, I'm not going to pay $6.
Oh God.
I'd rather you
Yeah.
just get fired. Like, what the really?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. I had a ride this weekend like that, where I actually had to call ADT, the security line. And I won't go into details about the ride because it's a long conversation. But I called ADT during the ride, the last 10 minutes of the ride, like, hey, when I show up at this place, there's a guy probably waiting to beat me up. I just want to let you know. So they reported me, but I'd already called ADT, and then I called Uber as soon as I got out. As soon as they got out of the car, I called Uber. It's like, hey, I want to report these people because I knew they were going to contact Uber. And sure enough, they were like reckless driver. He was drunk, all this kind of stuff. But I already called Uber ahead of time. But you're right. They were just looking for a free ride.
No, I mean, I hear it all the time. I mean, people are like, I got deactivated, and I always wait for and why were you deactivated? And I wait for I have no idea, because that's the most common answer. I have no idea. But I have had people say, it was this one rider. I didn't do a damn thing. I had my dash cam rolling. Uber doesn't want the footage. This is the same company, for those that don't do rideshare, that ask you to register your dash cam with them, which of course I would never do. Why would I register my dash cam with you? You won't even take the footage when we need to submit it.
Oh man.
So, I mean, you have enough knowledge of me. Like, you don't need more. Like, I guess that's how I think of it, man. Like, it just keeps going. I don't mind, because at the same time I pick on these apps. There's no other thing than gig apps that we can just pick up and turn on and work and stop when we want. I mean, this just doesn't exist in real life, people. I mean, like, nobody, and I'll just say it this way, nobody watching this has ever had a W-2 where you can just come and go as you please, and you have the keys, and you can work 10 minutes, you can work 10 hours. No, that just doesn't exist anywhere. So, I mean, you got to take some of the good with the bad. And I know they keep pushing laws and devouring pay, which I guess leads me into, I know you're in Syracuse, and I'm curious, like, so rideshare is always going through its hiccups and whatnot, but 2024 so far with rideshare, how does that go for you in Syracuse? Do you do well?
Yeah, I'm very detailed with my numbers. I'm right around 40 something dollars an hour right now. And I measure that as online hours. So basically, the minute I turn the app on, I'm online,
Yes.
and I do it in big chunks. I'll do it for like 12 hours straight or something like that. So when I do rideshare, I don't do it in like 1 hour increments. So if I'm going to rideshare for that day, I'll do it for a full 12 hours. But so far this year, I'm right around $40 an hour. I haven't done last week's numbers, but I think last week I made 700 something in about 18 hours. So it's probably around 40 hours. And then but I'm making 75 cents on the dollar, right? So after expenses, it's more like $30 an hour, which is it's good money. I'll take it.
So you're doing UberX. What are your UberX rates in Syracuse, if you don't mind me asking?
We have.
I mean, I know it's up front now too, but I mean, like,
yeah,
as far as you can remember, what was the rate card at?
God, I have no idea. That was so long ago, right?
I mean, had it got pretty low though?
I think my minimum trip. So, if you don't know, I'm a short ride guy. I love the shortest trips possible. So when I see a $5 trip, I take them all day, right? That's how I make my money. And so if I could do like $5 trips in an hour, right, not including any bonuses or surges or tips and everything else on top of it, that's kind of how I look at it. So I don't know. I know what you're asking, my mileage rate and all that kind of stuff, but it was so long ago, I don't remember. But my minimum fare here is $4.02. And the reason why I say $5 is because I'm still under that EV bonus where it's $1 per trip. So it's really $5.02. But it's really weird. I think the smaller markets like Syracuse are actually being funded by the larger markets. So if you were to go to LA or New York, Chicago, people expect rideshare to happen just like that. Well, in a smaller market, their expectations are still the same, but there's not as many drivers. And so we still have a lot of surges, a lot of bonuses. Well, our bonuses are down. We're more like this weekend was like, I think it was like $35 for 70 rides. But so that's been as low as it's ever been for us. But yeah, like
That's
like
low. That's
yeah,
real low.
but on Friday night, I made $500.
Yeah,
So
no, to be honest, I would just rather have all those bonuses and gamification gone and just let's deal with some straight pay.
yeah,
But
it'd
I
be
was going to
nice.
mention to you that like I do remember what X was here right before it went out. It was 55 cents a mile and 12 cents per minute. That puts you 1 cent under the mileage deduction.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, for both the mile and my time, still didn't equal the mileage deduction.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. Um, yeah, it's funny because I listen to like the way other people do rideshare, and I totally understand it. But I haven't had that experience because what I do is I park myself on a college campus typically, and Syracuse University as an example. And I just take the shortest trips possible. If that trip's over 10 minutes, I'll never take it. I don't care how profitable it is. I just won't take it. Now there are times when I go between towns because there's each little town has a college in it. So Ithaca and Binghamton. My son goes to Binghamton University, which is about an hour away. So if I'm in Syracuse and then there's an airport run from Syracuse to Binghamton, then I'll do that because I know as soon as I get to Binghamton, I can just park myself on that college campus and again, just do $5 trips all night. And again, they surge all the time. So it's not, I say $5, but it's like $10. It's like $15. And then the college kids like the lights underneath the seat or whatever. And then, or I put on Taylor Swift and get an
But
extra $5
at some
tip.
point, you still have to drive back, though. I mean, do you get
The
rides
deadhead
going back or?
most of the time I don't. Yeah, the deadhead
Okay.
time sucks. Yeah, the deadhead time eats into it. But you know, I was commuting to work too, so that's why I try to
I
do
was
it in
just
big
going to
chunks.
mention that we all, if you've had a W-2, we all have. I mean, even if it's 10 minutes or I know some people here in Colorado do like an hour and a half each way.
Right. And so the way I kind of look at it is that's why I do it in big chunks to eat that whatever deadhead time I do get. Um, it would be really hard because I live about 45 minutes from Syracuse. So for me to go to Syracuse is 45 minutes. For me to go to Ithaca is about an hour. For me to go to Binghamton is about an hour. So no matter which place I go, there's a deadhead time. And so if I'm going to have that time, I'm going to make the most of it and just drive for 12 straight hours.
Yeah, I hear you. So I'm going to go. I saw a couple questions here. I didn't want to fall too far behind. So let me see if I need your help to this question. I got dry and reckless violation in 2019. Do you know how long it stays on your back? But then I was trying to follow up with it. I know that somebody here was asking them about CBL violation, and they said it's on my driver record. It's not on my driver's record. It's on my background.
Yikes. I don't know.
I'm not even sure. I'm not sure I followed that correctly. And I guess is what I'm thinking right now because I'm not even sure what a dry and reckless is.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, to be honest, as somebody who worked in the bars for many years, I was thinking like that meant sober and reckless. Like
That's
dry.
right.
So I don't know. Obviously try and help, but see, my private rides are building too. Yeah, I mean, most drivers are just afraid to do it. That's the bottom line. They're just afraid to make that they think I'm Uber fed me this ride. I can't talk to this person. You've talked to him the whole way.
The whole time.
You're an independent contractor who works on multiple apps. You can do what you want. I mean, don't. I mean, of course, these apps will make you feel like. I mean, if you were to call them and go, "Can I do this?" They'll tell you probably even if you. Well, first of all, if you get somebody who understands the question, they'll tell you no, you can't, even though that's wrong. That's completely incorrect. But yeah, so I took a delivery from Laughlin. Customer paid 18. Uber got 11. I got 683. $2 tip. Contacted Uber. told them they had it backwards. Uber said we've had other complaints. I'm even surprised they said that to you because I'm not trying to laugh, Robin, but we've all been through this. Uber in most markets, Uber is over the 50% threshold on what they take.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we just often don't see what, especially even the upfront and stuff. It's upfront now, but it's not telling you what the customer paid. You just know what you're making. So
it's I'm gonna probably take a very controversial stance here. I think Uber and Lyft and all these companies should make money. If they don't make money, those gigs are going to go away, and I want them to make money. I think my frustration, and I think everybody's frustration, is if I knew what that percentage was going toward, I feel like I'd feel better about it. What happens is there's just like big chunks where they say it could be commercial insurance, and I'm like, well, is it? Just why are you trying to hide it? Why are they trying to keep that information from me? So you get kind of a partial breakdown, and then they say, well, here's what we're making for profitability too. So it's like at the bottom they're still getting their profit, but I think they're hiding money in there, and they're just not telling us. And I think that's why we don't trust them. So I don't really care if they took 90% and I still made $50 an hour. I don't really care, right? It would be foolish on their part to do that. But so the take rate doesn't really bother me as much as the take rate with the hitting data. I wish they would show us more.
Yeah. I mean, the take rate might bother you if they were showing you everything, but at the same time, I hear you. I mean, without them being in business, and now that they're public, there is a different level of responsibility. I mean, when they're privately funded, that could even be just people bringing suitcases of money in the back door to say, hey man, keep it going. Like when they were private for a year. I mean, all these gig apps were for almost a decade. So, I mean, it's now that they're public, there's a different financial level of responsibility. And I'm still sure some shady things happen. I'm not going to get around that. But at the same time, like, I honestly believe the biggest problem is, and I think we even just kind of addressed it a little earlier, was that when we were talking about people comparing, oh, well, what's it on Lyft? What's it on Uber? I don't have as many of those friends anymore. They just don't want a second app on their phone. So now they're either with Uber or they're with Lyft. So I don't think we're at those same old oversaturate the market days where if Lyft had a car every 3 blocks, Uber's like, put one every block.
Yeah.
I think that they need to start realizing even, hey, like, why don't, and I know it's a hard balance, but start working on driver retention for the good drivers and quit worrying about like bringing in 7,000 every day.
That's such a yes, Steve. No doubt about it. It's so frustrating as like, I consider myself now 4 years into the gig, 9,000 some odd rides, give or take, as a veteran driver. And, up until the other night, I had a perfect 5-star rating, and I'm really good at what I do. And you'd think Uber would find a way to ensure that I'm on the app more often, right? And they want to reward me. And it would take pennies. It would take nothing to reward me. Yet they kind of like, they treat me just like a brand new guy. And I really dislike that.
And that's where they lose. And when they, even if they're like, well, as long as we have enough people coming in, yeah, but that's allowed you to bring the pay down to a point where you lose some of the best drivers just on that alone. Maybe you've taken the pay too far down, but now you're losing the best of drivers because you just show them nothing, no appreciation at all. And again, we're independent contractors. I know this gets a little crazy because they shouldn't be favoriting any of us, but there should be notice on this because I think we're past the oversaturating point is my point. I think the demand is leveled out. I think the demand actually has something they can read now and go, we know what to expect now. And therefore have the right amount of drivers. I mean, I don't know, the days of me going, well, Lyft is $1 more, but they can be here in 2 minutes, or Uber can be here in 5. I don't really care. 5 or 2 is the same thing to me.
Yeah.
The old fight used to be, we need to be 5 seconds closer. I don't really think that matters anymore.
I don't think it matters. I think, in fact, how many times do we pull up and people are still making us wait anyway, right? So I don't think that really matters too much.
Yeah, I see some people talking about. I did have it on here as one of the things, so maybe we can touch on it a little, at least our opinions on it. If you're not familiar, I'll help bring you up to speed. But I think you will be. But there's some people asking about Minneapolis, and I do have a say in this. So here's what I'll tell you: is that um, Prop 22 in California was supposed to be for rideshare drivers. The Seattle pay up model was initially just for rideshare drivers. Now it's for food delivery. The active time minimum wage in New York City was, they tried this for rideshare drivers. So what I would say, like Prop 22 and Seattle's pay up, those would have worked for rideshare drivers. When accidentally they tripped and fell and the delivery drivers got into that model, that's what destroyed it all. But now here we know that for the what you're talking about with the Seattle, they're looking at giving the drivers here. I have this stat here even. They're looking at giving the drivers a, what is it? 83% more per trip. So the way that they're doing it is that, do I have these up here? Let me see.
It's like $1.20 per mile or something like that in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so it's like exactly. It's like right now it's like $1.07 for your mile and your minute, but it's going to be like $1.91. And everybody's so like I read articles today that said, Minnesota wins, Uber's going to bow. Okay, I can already tell you they're not going to, because they didn't accept that deal. And then I read another article saying every state needs to follow this. And then I read another article saying, there's no way Uber will do this. So here's my reality on it anyway, is that Uber will not pay $1.91. That's not coming to you guys. Will there be some settlement? If there is, it's going to be so close to what the pay is right now that you guys don't like. It's not going to even feel like a win. And it's going to be a reason for them to make the passengers pay more, which they always are looking for anyway. How can we increase prices? Now we can do it and build it into the breakdown like we've done in Seattle and California, and put, Minneapolis state ordinance fee.
Yeah, it's
just such, guys, I don't want you to not be paid as good as you can. Trust me, I'm not up here like trying to be a shill for the companies. I'm just being a realist that I don't think this guy, the mayor said no, I veto last year, the governor vetoed, and this time with the mayor, they just said, well, we don't care. And I just don't see, Uber's still there trying to see if a deal can be made. But if they just really are going to hold their ground, I actually think, believe it or not, I think they will leave.
I think they will too. I actually made a video about this a couple of times. My graduate degree is in economics, so I'm pretty familiar with like large scale. Lynn, if you guys know Lynn over at Columbia University, he's written some articles about this too. We're friends. And one of the things that's kind of really stood out to me is, I think, a lack of real knowledge of what's going to happen on the grand economic scale. It's happened here in New York. So here in New York, it's not just New York City, now it's New York State. We have this minimum wage, right? And it says $26 an hour for active time. But most people that are new to our business don't understand the difference between active and online time. And so they see it as like, I'm going to make $26 an hour. So when you increase a minimum wage, all you're doing is inviting more drivers. And the reason why our fare, what we make, is so low is because we are saturated with number of drivers. And so when you have a minimum wage, whether it could be $1 million an hour, whatever the minimum wage is, it doesn't really matter. It just excites more people to come out into your market and start to drive. And so it's all these part-timers, the guys that do 1 to 5 hours a week. They're going to flood the market when they see these minimum wages. Worse, here in New York, I just did an analysis. We actually have a benefit. We get sick time here in New York. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, I've seen that in some states. Yeah.
And so I actually qualified so far for 2 hours of sick time. It's great. So I can make $26 an hour for 2 hours. If I go report to Uber that I'm sick. Now I looked at my weekly timesheets. I've paid $86 into that program. So I've paid $86, and they were going to say, oh, you get $50, right? 26 or $52. It's like with every single government demand, whether it be from the drivers or the Uber, it just complicates the market. And there's always going to be somebody skimming off of it, whether it be the Uber, the politicians, the lawyers. It doesn't really matter. And I will tell you that the New York minimum wage slash benefit is it's just hurting my market. It's gonna negatively affect me, and I feel bad for the drivers in Minneapolis that were making good money,
Mm.
and now they're gonna have to face the wrath of the drivers that were not making good money. And I understand too. By the way, there's a part of me that really despises Uber and Lyft, So I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, get them. But it's kind of like, get them at what cost? And I think they might have shot themselves in the foot. I hope they didn't. I hope the team in Minneapolis, another company comes in, or Uber and Lyft acquiesce, and I hope that it works out for them. But I don't think it will.
We've seen lesson learned before too. We've seen, and it actually came at a time when, and in a city where maybe something could have happened, was when Uber and Lyft left Austin, Texas. There was like 3 startups that had been there for a year that were all doing pretty well. Without Uber and Lyft there, they couldn't make it, which was a very odd thing. All of a sudden they fell too. They collapsed without the giants there.
It's really interesting too. But when was that? That was like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Uber and Lyft are much bigger brands. And I just think of myself as a passenger. Let's say I land in Minneapolis, right? I'm just flying in to go to a hotel, and my natural inclination is get on and order an Uber. And I could see the signage in the airport. No, we don't have Uber and Lyft here. You have to download this app. I'm like, I'm already like, I'm not going to figure that out. I don't want to download an app just to drive in Minneapolis. I'm just going to do something different. So Uber is ubiquitous. It's everywhere in the United States, and same with Lyft, right? And so people are just very comfortable traveling to those places. Now, if you live in Minneapolis, you could probably get, some sort of other app and kind of use it. But I would not travel to Minneapolis and say, oh, I'm going to download a new app and register as I'm trying to get my bags. And it would be really frustrating.
Yeah, no. And the other thing I'd compare it to too is a lot of these people who, I won't just use Minneapolis guys, because I know that those people have been fighting pretty hard, but usually this is the same thing I think say about writing your legislators. People don't write their legislators and say, bang up job, keep it going. They write when they're pissed off.
That's right.
So you only hear from the upset people. And therefore, there are drivers who make really good money. So they're not even really aware of what all this is going on until it happens. And I guess my thing becomes is don't drop a grenade into the system because it's not working for you. Not everybody's meant for the service industry even. And I'll use that as a last tack point is that, federal minimum wage. I know that no state really uses it. I know some states still use it and they put it in their language, but like if it says 7.25, which is the federal minimum wage, most jobs in your state are probably hiring at 15. They're not using it. They just have it in there. But how many of you know that $7.25 federal minimum wage is also $2.13 minimum wage for tipped jobs? I bet not many of you know that. And my point there is that you got to roll with this job. This is a tipped job. Now, if you say you're not getting tips, nobody cares. It's a tipped job. So to be honest, they shouldn't be like going, okay, $23. It should be more like along those lines of like service industry. Okay, fine. You want minimum wage? $6 an hour.
Yeah, and it's really
that's where it would get sad. I know you guys are going to get mad about that, but I'm just being honest.
Yeah, and that's the thing that that really, the reason why I have a heart for my fellow drivers out there is I don't think anybody really cares about us, right? The companies don't care, the passengers don't care. I don't think the legislators really care, and it's just kind of like we're out there alone to some extent. And I feel it's really important for us to bond as a community. I don't want to join a union. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking just more about people that can communicate and connect with each other on a more meaningful level. Because you're right, Steve, it's a tip job, and they're going to make up all these reasons why we should be making more money. And there are people, I know there are guys in my market, Steve, that make $70 an hour.
Yeah.
They kill it. They kill it. Now they're only working, let's say 25 hours a week, but they're working from like, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. every day or something like that. And they're killing it. But they're choosing to make that kind of money. They found a way to make money doing it. And I would be really pissed off if I was them. The guy that drives from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in my market on a Saturday, there's no rides. That's why you're not making money. It's
Yeah,
like,
no, it's
and so
it's the same as
yeah,
if you want the Friday, Saturday, again, I'll take it back to service industry. You want the Friday,
yeah,
Saturday bar shift, you got to work a Tuesday and a Wednesday day and make nothing.
that's correct.
You might have one person come in. You might get a $2 tip.
Yeah.
You're literally there, and you're cleaning too, by the way. You're there cleaning for the night people, getting the bar set up. You're doing all the getting ready work, and you're doing that just to get the better shift.
Correct. One of the things I do, Steve, just to kind of build upon that, is I take reserved rides. And because I want to show the signal to Uber that I'm really passionate about getting that kind of stuff. Even though sometimes the reserve rides, the long ones to the airport and back, while I can make money on that one particular ride, the wait time and everything, it's not right. But you're right. It's kind of like doing my thing, because I want people in my market. This is going to sound crazy. I want people in my market to go, I can trust on Uber. It sounds crazy because it's
Yeah,
like,
no.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
look, if you're doing a lot of Uber, you don't want to be like, yeah, I'm with you'd rather be like, yeah, I'm with Uber, like,
For sure.
I mean, and wouldn't they better benefit too by, having, instead of us having our own cards about rideshare, like Steve's rideshare, just call me directly, me wanting to promote Uber, like find a
Yeah,
way for me to promote it for you. Because I agree, I'd like you to keep feeding me rides and do the marketing for me.
that would be
Appreciate
so
that.
good. Can I
Um,
answer Robin's question real quick?
Yeah, that's what
Robin,
I was gonna bring which one? This one? Yeah.
Rob, yeah, it says, Levi. So are you saying that all New York drivers are employees now without all the employee benefits, but you get sick time if you pay into a program like any other insurance plan? It's basically a mandatory system, Robin. A couple of months ago, there was like a big lawsuit in the state of New York. Letitia James, she's also known for that Trump lawsuit, right? And what she's doing is they force Uber and Lyft to basically compensate drivers by coming up with sick time. And so there's like a line in our statements each week that says how much you paid into this New York employee benefits program. And now I can sign into the app and see how much sick time I've accrued. And it's all based upon how many hours you work. In addition to that, they also have a minimum wage for active time. So if we're active, period 2 and period 3 with somebody either on our way to get a person or if they're in the car, that active time, we're going to get paid $26 an hour. So it's not really how many miles we drive or anything like that. It's just basically as long as we're active, we're going to make a minimum of $26 an hour. The reality is most people in my market, if not all of them, are making well above 26. So it's kind
I
of
was
like
gonna say, when you're talking
it's
about
lip
the active
service.
hour, that's why it was originally made for just rideshare. This is why it doesn't
Yeah,
work with when you fit the delivery in, because they've got it pretty close. If not, most drivers make more. So
that's
therefore,
correct.
they're not going to have to pay you because you're going to make more than that on the active time.
That's right. And so all the drivers, though, the non-drivers of the world are like, oh, look, maybe I should, $26 an hour. I can come in and become a rideshare driver, and just floods the market with more drivers.
I mean, DoorDash, when New York City said, "Hey, 50 cents a minute," or if it was it 50 cents a minute, yeah, 50 cents a minute for active time, um, on DoorDash and on the food platforms. Okay, so everybody instantly went to $30 an hour. First of all, you're not active every minute of every hour, even if you are busting it.
Mhm.
But second of all, DoorDash came out and publicly announced that they throttle you at 65% of an hour. So there was like a number of 1873 that was confusing people because they're like, well, wait, I could make $30 in an hour at 50 cents a minute. And they were like, no, you can't because we throttle you at 65. I mean, they just said it.
They
They
just
just said
said
it
it.
outright. They're like, we have too many drivers, so we'll just throttle you.
Oh man, yeah, and it's such a because we have upfront pricing now. It's all just a game. At the end of the day, basically the way I look at it, Steve, is this: if I can make $30 an hour when it's really slow, in my market, and that's about normal. Sometimes even as low as $25 an hour, and when it's banging like that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., I'll make $60, $70 an hour. I'm fine. I don't care how they do the math. I don't care what their take rate is. I can't. And I'm an accountant and an economist, and I think I can understand numbers really well. But it's like at the end of the day, I'm kind of like, just put that money in my bank account. If I can make $500 on a Friday night, I'm okay. I can't. It's just too much for me to figure out now. It's beyond. Yeah. I wish they simplified it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly they don't want to. They don't want any of us knowing the system. They just want you to be happy with the result. They know we're not, but they just still want you to be.
Yeah.
I mean, which is shown every day by this same thing we were talking about before. You know, the fact that you're still oversaturating markets to levels where all of us are mind blown. The customers, the drivers, we're all like, what are you doing? It's not even like just the drivers anymore like it used to be. The customers are even like, what are you doing? Why are there so many Uber drivers?
And their price has gone up. That's the thing that's crazy about it is I know the passengers are paying more and more. I can go look at my statements and see what the passengers are paying. So we know the passengers are paying more and more. I feel like I think Uber did a really smart thing. If I were to be frank, I think that people just rely upon it. I know so many people, even my son's 22. He's not really into cars. He just got an Uber. I think people are they're comfortable with it and they can price it in, especially with the price of vehicles. It's really, I think Uber's in a good spot right now.
Yeah. Well, we ate through an hour really quick. I could keep talking. There's Rideshare Lisa. How you doing, Lisa? Lisa's also in the same market as Levi, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. I think
so. Lisa, we just talked all about your market, so you just missed it all.
Yeah, Lisa, I told everybody to go exactly where to go. Hang out at the mall. That's where all the rides are, Lisa. No.
But yeah, guys, that's an hour. That's a wrap for the week. I want to thank Levi for joining me. I want to thank you guys for watching and the audio podcast listeners for listening. Make sure to check out Levi. I'll put all of his info in the show notes, his YouTube and his Twitter account. And if he has more, he can let me know. But on YouTube, it's Tip Me in the App. And on Twitter, it's at Levi Spires. Right?
Yeah. What's Tip You in the App? It's definitely
tip me in the app.
Yeah.
Tip you in the app. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely tongue in cheek. And it's a pleasure. You know, I am so happy to be here. And Steve, I've been following along with what you've been doing. And like I said, I think there's an important value in having a community for us as workers, right? Because we're kind of out there alone. Nobody cares about us. And your podcast, your show is definitely a place where we can find a home. And I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. I always like a compliment, man. It's a nice way to end. So, and
just leave me a nice review and a tip. I'll take a review.
And if you guys are on Twitter, make sure that's and TikTok too. I should have said TikTok too. Find Levi on TikTok. But if you're on Twitter, I'm always trying to connect you guys with some of the people I think you should follow on Twitter. Levi's one of them. Like he's one of those ones you'll enjoy because there's some people on Twitter that you're really gonna be bothered by too, just like any platform. But that's why I'm always trying to tell you guys about the good ones. So check him out on all his platforms, and we will see you back here next week on the Rodeo Podcast. Thanks, everybody.
She was just a baby. Hey, no